Welcome to I Have Issues, I'm Fway Storm, and I've got a very quick question for you. How the devil art thou? How are you doing? I hope you're keeping well. Unfortunately, I have to start this episode with a couple of sad notes, I'm afraid. You see, first of all, after the last episode was recorded and published, the news broke that the legendary Steve Ditko, the J.D. Salinger of comic books, passed away at the age of 90. Steve Ditko, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you do, but just in case, was a co-creator on Spider-Man. He worked on Doctor Strange, he created and worked on Mr. A, and several other titles. He was a huge influence in the comic book industry, even though he didn't do as much work as many other artists and creators did. Like I said, he was known as the J.D. Salinger of comic books. Stan Lee even referred to him very lovingly as Shy Steve Ditko, and it's a shame that he passed away. If there's anything that stands out to me about Steve Ditko, it's the fact that I've heard many a story, that whilst he was alive, if you got hold of his mailing address, you could write to him. And he always had time to write back to whoever wrote to him, unless they were rude, obviously. And that's just an amazing thing. He always had time for those who had respect for him. And it is a great loss. It's very sad that he has passed away. But also, another legend, if you will, has passed away. See, the weekend just gone was the weekend of Comic-Con. And Comic-Con started with some bad news. And that was the fact that Jon Schnepp, director of Metalocalypse, as well as a host on Collider Movie Talk and Collider Heroes, had passed away at age 51 after suffering from a massive stroke, which is really sad. He was such a funny personality. He was so creative and stuff. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but almost everyone who did always sang his praises of how awesome of a human being he was. And every year he went to Comic-Con. He coined the term sweaties, meaning the fans, the people who love something so much that when they're around it just causes them to break out into a sweat because they're that passionate. And he was seen as the king of the sweaties. And he also made an exceptional documentary called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, which was all about the production and the unfortunate cancelling of the 90s Superman movie that was going to be directed by Tim Burton and star Nicolas Cage as Clark Kent, as well as a few other well-known actors playing well-known characters. And it's an exceptional documentary. He ended up crowdfunding it on Kickstarter, I believe it was, and it was just so good. And like I said, he was a director of Metalocalypse. He helped animate it. He helped design the look of the band members for Metalocalypse. He also worked on Venture Brothers, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and there was even a Black Panther series from Marvel that was done on BET that he directed. And I believe he also directed a Metallica music video. He worked in comics as a writer. He wrote the Slayer comic book that you can get now, which I haven't read it. I've heard very good things about it though. And yeah, it's very sad to hear of his passing. He was a very creative person, as I've already mentioned. And I saw a video on Collider's YouTube channel where they were remembering Jon Schnepp. And one thing they pointed out was that he was so scared of not being, but becoming irrelevant. And if you've ever experienced any of Jon Schnepp's work or the stuff that he did for Collider, I don't know why he feared that, because he was always relevant. He was one of those people that, because he did so much and it was on such a regular basis, it was hard to forget him. And he was such a character, such a personality. He was so passionate. like I said, I never got to meet the guy, but from what I saw, he was absolutely fucking amazing. So, yes, I wanted to start this off by saying rest in peace, Steve Ditko, and rest in peace, Jon Schnepp. You will both be sorely, sorely missed. Now, as I mentioned, Comic-Con has been. I have never gone to San Diego Comic-Con. I've appeared at many conventions, and I've just gone to conventions as an attendee, or as, sometimes I've even bought a table just to be there, even if I wasn't asked to be there as a guest or anything. And I enjoy doing comic book conventions. I haven't done one for a few years now, and hopefully that will change in the near future. But San Diego Comic-Con is a weird one for me. I actually, like I said, I've never been there. And I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, I've got to go there before I die kind of thing. I've got to experience it at least once. I'm one of these people that's like, yeah, it would be fucking cool to experience it. But I'm not in a mad rush to do that. You know, I kind of enjoy being the guy in a completely different country who's doing his thing and checking the internet every now and then going, okay, what have they announced at Comic-Con? What's been released at Comic-Con? And, to be honest, in past years, when Comic-Con has happened, I've walked away from it going, holy shit, that sounds like it was an immense Comic-Con, and so much was released and published and this, that, and the other. And this year, I don't know whether it's because of things like the passing of Jon Schnepp or not, but it just seemed a little flat to me. But even though it seemed a little flat to me, and there wasn't really much to talk about after it was all over, I think the three key things that I thought were awesome personally was the fact that a Shazam trailer dropped. I fucking love Shazam, aka Captain Marvel. I love that character. He's fucking awesome, and I'm so glad to see that there's a Shazam movie on the way. And personally, I thought the trailer looked fan-fucking-tastic, so I'm very excited for that. There was an Aquaman trailer. Now, I wasn't really hyped for this movie. I then saw the trailer and I was like, holy shit, I actually think that looks pretty damn good. So now I'm looking forward to seeing Aquaman. And there was a trailer for Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which I thought looked excellent as well. It's a sequel to the 2014 Godzilla, which, when I saw the trailer for the 2014 Godzilla, I thought it looked awesome. Then I saw that movie and was a little disappointed with it, but that's a subject matter that would take up a whole podcast episode. I'm not going to dive too deep into it now. But yeah, to me, I think those three things were awesome. There were a couple of other little things that I was like, well, that just isn't that big a deal to me. Like they had a trailer for The Flash Season 5, and they revealed that the villain, the big bad for this season, is going to be Cicada. Yeah, I'm really not too bothered to see. This is the thing. I loved that first season of The Flash. I have a weird relationship with that show. You see, when I first saw the pilot, I didn't like it. I was like, man, this sucks. Just leave it. I don't want to go anywhere near it. And then several months later, I think it was about 6 months later, I ended up re-watching it for some reason. I don't know why. And I got to the end of it, I was like, you know what? I really enjoyed that this time around. I don't know why I didn't enjoy it the first time around. I thought this was pretty good. So I continued watching season 1. I pretty much binged it in a couple of days, and I loved it. I just fell in love with that show. And at the time, season 2 hadn't been airing at that point, so I was like, oh my god, how long till season 2? Then season 2 started airing, and at first, the first few episodes of season 2 got me really hyped and got me really excited. By the end of season 2, I was so glad that it was over, because I ended up thinking that season 2 was such a letdown. And then season 3 happened, and I think that was a mixed bag. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't like. I think it was a mixed bag for the general audience of the show anyway. I wouldn't say it was a bad season. It was better than season 2, but it just wasn't season 1 quality to me. And season 4 that just happened, man, there were so many times where I was just going to stop watching that show, because they did all the right things to make me go, you know what, I just don't care about this anymore. As an audience member, I actually start feeling insulted at certain points during the 4th season, because I was like, really, you think that little of your audience? So I'm not too hyped about season 5. I'm not too hyped about the villain that they've picked for it. I hope it's cool. When it starts airing, I'll be watching it, and I hope that it's cool. It's just I'm not building up my hopes just yet. I'm keeping my anticipation for it as low as possible. So yeah, there was some other stuff that they announced. But once again, it was all stuff that I'm like, it's in the back of my head, but I can't even bring it forward right now because the main things that stood out to me was Shazam, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Aquaman. To me, that stole the show. So, what can you do? What can you do? Anyway, that's all I've really got to say about Comic-Con. But let me tell you something else that's been happening since I last recorded an episode, and I'm actually really pleased about this because I feel that in a way it kind of connects to what I was talking about in the last episode of like what can be done to help the comic book industry. Because look, let's not beat around the bush. The comic book industry is suffering. It really is suffering. Exceptionally low sales numbers. Kids just aren't going to comic book stores anymore, and people are going to the comic book movies, and they are loving the comic book movies. See, this is the conundrum. Comic book movies and superhero movies, they are doing so well. The fandom for that stuff is just ascending all the time. Yet, comic book sales, where these superheroes originate from, is descending. It's going down all the time. Every now and then there's a little spike because there's like some sort of event that catches people's eyes or whatever, but the sales numbers are just exceptionally low. And there's going to be multiple reasons for this, some that are completely out of the comic book industry's control, but some of it's got to be with what the creators are making and stuff. So anyway, I read and heard about a couple of cool things that I was like, oh shit, that sounds awesome. I think that could be a good foot in the right direction to start helping the comic book industry to hopefully save comic books. Okay, and the first thing was the DC Walmart deal. Now, I don't know all the details to this, but basically Walmart have started selling these, there's 4 different titles coming from DC. Superman, Teen Titans, Justice League of America, and Batman. And these are basically anthology comics. Like, each issue is 100 pages, it's $5, which, depending on who you are, that's either a reasonable price or a not reasonable price whatsoever. And, it literally contains, like, 3 reprints, okay? 3 different issues reprinted within it, and a new story that is exclusively for each title that's, like, a 12-page chapter or whatever, so that it can, so that comics are reaching a wider audience. You don't just have to go to a specialist store to pick up comic books. And this is the thing, this is one thing I've had a problem with comics recently. It's the fact that you can pick up, a book, an issue, for, $5, and that issue, including the cover, consists of a 40-page count, so that's 40 pages, but the majority of it is advertising or the cover. You get about 22 pages of actual comic, and to me that's kind of insulting because the advertising space is paid for before the book is printed, and then the audience has to pay to have ads in the book. It just doesn't work to me. I just don't think that's cool. I could get it if the books were being put out for super dirt cheap, or if they were being given out for free, but they're not. And you can pick up a 200-page manga for, over here, between where I am in the UK, is between $5 and $7. That's that's value. That is huge value. And this is the thing, comics, when they started, they were seen as cheap pulp entertainment, and that hasn't really changed. That's how comic book readers like it, and we see this in Japan with manga and Shonen Jump and stuff like that, where they can buy an issue of Shonen Jump. It's like the thickness of fucking War and Peace. It's the size of a fucking phone book. It's super dirt cheap. They get chapters from multiple titles, and they don't buy it to collect it and go, oh, this is going to raise in value and it will pay for my kids' college tuition later. Look at these variant cuts. They don't do any of that. It's just, okay, let me pick that up. It's printed on cheap paper. It's in black and white. And people buy it and they pretty much read it and then they throw it away. And mangas, whether they be the collected books, the graphic novels, or the individual magazines like Shonen Jump, they sell millions. They're not having a fucking problem like the comic book industry, like the Western comic books are having a problem. So, like I said, I think we need to take a lesson from them, and one of them is price. Definitely price. This is meant to be cheap entertainment, not collector's art pieces. Alan Moore once said, in this like documentary thing, I think it was called Monsters, Maniacs and More. He said that he always considered comics to be better than art, because with comics, you don't need to pay a small fortune to own a piece. And at the time of that being made, that was a thing that was like back in the 80s. It may have been just before or just after he had worked on Watchmen. And it was such a good point to make. You know, there's lots of people out there who are like, oh yes, I'm a high art collector. I spend thousands, millions on a piece of art. You don't need to have a small fortune to get comics. But the way that the prices are going at the moment and all the stuff that's being done with variant comics, that's going to fucking change soon. And it shouldn't be that way because it's getting in the way of people enjoying comics. Anyway. This DC Walmart deal, I think, is a good thing. I've been watching some review videos on YouTube of people who have gone to Walmart and picked up like a copy of each issue. It just looks fantastic. I think they are moving in the right direction because it's putting comics in front of people. And it's doing it a lot better than when it's just in a comic book shop. Look, I've got nothing against comic book shops. I fucking love comic book shops. I love going to a comic book shop and being like, okay, I'm going to have a bit of a spend. But they won't last if something isn't done to bring those numbers up, to encourage kids to go to the comic book shop and stuff. And I feel that this is a step in the right direction. The other thing that I found out about, thanks to my friend CB Smallwood, he's got a YouTube channel. And he's working on his own comic book called Wildcat, but he's also doing like videos, not just on his comic book, but on like other stuff that's going on in like the world of comics and stuff. And he did a thing about the DC Walmart deal. A video about the DC Walmart deal. And he found out that Diamond Distribution, who were the people responsible for getting rid of the classic spinner rack, have now decided that they're bringing back the spinner rack. Thank you, that's fucking awesome. I miss spinner racks. It's such a simple little thing, but I do miss it. It's like, because of the time that I grew up back in the 80s. And back then, I loved VHS. I still love VHS now, what am I saying? But back then, it used to be like a weekend thing when I was a kid. Like, you would go to the video rental store, and the way they had the VHS displayed and all that, and I miss that, because to me, like, I don't really do much of this streaming stuff, but when I do, I don't see it as, oh, okay, I'm streaming something, and I don't see the point in paying, like, for all these different streaming services, because to me, it's just a more modern take on the video rental, if that makes sense. That's just how it is to me. But the one thing it's lacking is that you don't have those awesome displays. Those shelves that were made specifically for the videos and VHS and stuff. And, it's the same with comics. Like, it's cool having all these shelves, but no amount of shelves that are specially designed will ever beat a spinner rack. And this is the thing. Back when comic books were at a super height of popularity, it was because there wasn't just comic book stores. There were spinner racks in the comic book stores, but spinner racks used to also be at the newsstands and the news agents and stuff like that. And that's how a majority of people first got into comic books, because they saw these comics at a place that wasn't a specialty shop. They got hold of it, fell in love with it, and then started going to the specialty shops, the comic book stores, the brick and mortar stores. And I just think it's a great move. I've been thinking for a long time, and I've been saying to my friends for a long time, that I feel that the answer to the direction that the industry is going in is look at how it started. Look in the past, and you will see the direction that it's going in. And I feel like that's actually happening now. I feel like my thoughts about it, my opinions about it are validated. But I just wanted to say, I just think it's so fucking cool that Diamond are doing this. I believe it is the right move, and I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that. So anyway, that's kind of wrapping things up for this episode. But before I go, I found that I have done the past couple of times, or at least I think I did it on the last episode, I'm not sure. I normally talk about like what I've been reading. And, I've been reading a hell of a lot whilst I've been jumping between projects and stuff. I mentioned last issue. Maybe I should start calling these episodes issues. Last episode, I discussed that I've been reading quite a lot of manga. I've been reading Assassination Classroom. I'm like on volume 10 of that at the moment. I've been reading One Punch Man. I think I'm on volume 10 of that, maybe volume 11. I've been reading Bakuman. I'm on volume 2 of that, but I've got up to volume 10 right next to me, so I can get to that soon. I've been reading Blue Exorcist, just the first 2 volumes of that. I want to get the 3rd volume soon. I've been reading My Hero Academia, and I've been thoroughly enjoying those. I've also just finished reading 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. That is a dense book. It is such an excellent book as well. It is absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad that I got into it, but it was one that, because it was so dense, it took me quite a while to read. I can be quite quick reading a book. Sometimes I can get a 300-page book and I can read it in like 3, 4, 5 days. This one took me about 2 months to read, because it's only about 3, 4, 500 pages. But like I said, because the subject matter is so dense, it takes a bit of time to read it. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. So if you're into those sort of books, I highly recommend 12 Rules for Life. And even if you're not into manga and you're just into your comics, you should really, if I had to recommend any of the mangas that I've been reading lately, I would say it's a tie between My Hero Academia and One Punch Man. So whether you're into manga or not, maybe you want to check those out to see why I feel that comics should start taking inspiration from manga to help out the situation that the comic industry is in. Because then you'll start seeing why I think that. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on. I'm going to wrap this episode up right here. Look, thank you very much for listening. It's awesome doing this. I really do enjoy doing this, having a conversation with you. And, a one-man podcast does mean that the conversation is very one-sided, but it doesn't have to be. If you're on my YouTube channel or you're on my website, there are ways of leaving me a little message or sending me a little message. So please feel free to do so, because you know what? I wouldn't mind doing an episode in the future, or maybe having it as a regular thing on this podcast. Well, I can read some of the messages that you sent me. There's a contact form on my website, so feel free to message me through that. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for now, and I cannot wait to do this again soon, and I cannot wait to talk to you some more. But until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and don't forget, peace and fucking believe.